I've taken this 4x8 sheet of styrofoam. It's Dow residential sheeting insulation. It's $7.50 at Lowe's for a 4x8 sheet. It's a 1/2 inch thick, you see, and it's super lightweight, but it's extremely dense. You can see you can mash it and it's super dense. And this stuff peels really easy. There's a slight onion skin on this, but once you get it started, if I can get it started, you can see it just peels really, the whole sheet will just peel right off. The first 4 sheets I glued together, cut out this compartment, and then I glued an extra sheet on the outside, and then I took a bandsaw and just cut out the desired shape I wanted and used the belt sander to get the remaining section. And it is extremely stiff. You can see I took a hot coat hanger and poked it through there and made my, you see the little tube I've got in there, just ran a hot coat hanger all the way through to the compartment, and that's where I'm going to hook my servos up and control surfaces. Alright, this is my wing. As you can see, I've taken 2 pieces of the foam and glued them together, kind of offset them, and I've already started sanding the front. What I did is kind of print off the standard airfoil like that, and that's the way I'm shaping my wing, so, or at least the one I'm going after. Alright, well, after about 10 minutes in a very large pile of styrofoam dust on the floor, you can kind of see the general shape that we're accomplishing here from that. Pretty decent airfoil. I am going to cover it, and I am going to cut ailerons out of that also. But if you're not planning on covering it, leave it about 1/4 inch thick down there, and that'll be plenty thin enough, and still have you good looking. You can completely fly this just like it is. You can see here this fuselage is solid as a rock and it's completely smooth all over. The only reason I'm going to cover it is to get rid of those lines right there from the styrofoam being glued back together, but it's just fine the way it is. If you don't want to cover it, you don't have to. You can see I got my motor mounted up there now on my firewall. On the firewall, what I did is take 4 dowel rods, drilled 4 holes into the fuselage, and I glued 4 dowel rods into the fuselage, flush with the nose of it. And then I took this piece of plywood here, glued it onto the dowel rods and the nose of the plane, because it was all solid right there. It's not hollow. And once I had it glued on, I ran 4 small wood screws into the dowel rods. So now that it's being held in by the dowel rods that are encased inside the fuselage, they go back about 3 inches. Plus it's been glued onto the front of the nose and screwed into the dowel rods. So there's no way that's coming loose. Alright, change of plans. I got the wing done last night, and today when I went to cut the dihedral, or cut the slots in to make the dihedral, I got to looking at this thing, and it looks like it's going to be, I thrusted the engine on, and it's got a severe amount of thrust. I put the carbon fiber spar in this wing and left it flat because it looks like it's going to be pretty daggum aerobatic. So I left the wing flat. I've got my ailerons cut out. What I did is tape the area. The first one I didn't. I made a mistake and I had to go back. But I taped the area top and bottom before I cut the ailerons out, because that is so thin. I'll show you one of the ailerons here. Is really thin, and this foam just kind of bowed up. So I taped it before I cut it. Worked really well. You'll see I glued the carbon fiber spar in there. I burnt the groove in there with a soldering iron. Just used a straight edge and ran a soldering iron down, and it worked really well. Glued a tube of this carbon fiber right here in. It's about I believe it's 5mm outer diameter. Once I got that in, I went to glue these little tubes in. I got some of this little small tube right here, and I went to glue it in, and apparently this foam is, you can't even use foam. I've got the Foam Safe CA. I've used that one, and I tried another one, and both of them melt the foam clean through, as you can see right there. So I caught it in time and managed to dry it all up out of there. I even used Kicker on it to try to instantly cure it, and that didn't work either. So I ended up using my hot glue gun right there. Glued the pieces in there, and I've got my controls for my ailerons here. Went ahead and dug out a hole in the center and got my servo mounted there. And before I actually permanently mount the servo, I'm going to remove it and cover the wing I'm going to cover the aileron separate, and then we'll put them in their place. And that aileron will just push onto that wire, and then install whatever kind of hinges you want. If you want to tape your hinges, I actually went out and got some of these. I'm cheating. I know I was supposed to build this thing really, really cheap, but I got this package of hinges for 50 cents on clearance at a hobby shop, so I'm still within the budget. And those hinges will work a lot better than the tape will on ailerons. Alright, I kind of skipped the process of me covering the plane because I didn't have anyone to film, and my hands were covered in the diluted glue mix that I was using. But what I did, you take this brown paper, comes on a roll like this. You can get it at Lowe's for $1.50. You take a bowl and mix Elmer's glue or any kind of white glue with water. Dilute it down. I don't know the mixture. You want it milky, but you don't want it too thick. If it's too thick, it won't soak into the paper. So kind of experiment with your own mixture to see what soaks in. But dip the paper in there is the best for smaller surfaces like the elevators and rudders and things like that. But this long surface, I usually just put a coat on with a paintbrush onto the fuselage, and then I just put the paper on top of it, and then once you've got it somewhat adhered to, it'll be wet, and it stays wet for a long time. This is still really tacky, but you leave it on there for about 15-20 seconds. It'll start to tack up a little bit, and then take a paintbrush and dab it in the glue, and then brush the top surface with the glue also. So the bottom surface will adhere from what you brushed on the foam. The top surface will you'll put a light coating on it. And once it dries, it hardly weighs anything. This brown paper is super light. All the liquid evaporates, but what you're left with is a really hard shell. And what I did on this, did the bottom half. When I do the top, I'll wrap it down over top of this. And when it dries, sometimes you'll get wrinkles in it. You'll see some wrinkles like that right there. But when it dries, it's really hard, and you can just sand those wrinkles down with some like 220 or maybe 320 grit sandpaper. And that's paintable because the Elmer's glue dries. The water evaporates, the glue dries. It makes a very paintable surface, and you can use any kind of paint you want, even an enamel, although they're heavy. So use your own judgment on as far as weight goes on your plane. But I'm going to be using this luster coat made by Top Flight. It's a high gloss fuel proof model paint. I tested a spot on some dried paper that I did on the wing already, and it coats really nice. Should work well. Alright, here's my finished product. I know I skipped a lot of steps like some of the paper covering and the painting and things like that, but that's just common knowledge stuff. And I was trying to save some time on this video. You're only allowed 10 minutes, so I went through a couple of different mounting mechanisms or mounting ways for the wing, but that's essentially what I came up with. That little thing's just hot glued onto the final covering. And if you look right there, I took a drill bit and heated it up with a cigarette lighter and burnt 2 holes right there and right there, and inserted the dowel rod about 3 inches down in there, and then I glued in those little pieces of plywood around just to kind of support it, and drilled 2 holes in there, and that's what my wing mounts into. It's got the 2 carbon fiber struts on the front. I got some paint on them, but it'd be alright. That slide in through the 2 little holes, and then you just put 2 screws down through there, and it holds the wing on. The motor's mounted. You can see I've got a small air hole right there. Air goes in there, and it comes out the bottom right there. Got my little ultralight wheels on there, some 1/8 wire bent, a little piece of plywood to hold that on right there, and there's a piece of plywood up inside there also. Holding the landing gear in place. My little tail wheel on the back, tiny little tail wheel. I wish I could have went with a little bit bigger one, but again, I was trying to keep my budget under $10 on this plane. I believe I went over by about $1 after I bought all the control rods and wheels and things of that nature. But I've got about $11, maybe $12 in this plane, and you don't have to paint it if you don't want. The covering's fine. You could have flown it just as foam, and it would be a lot lighter. I believe I added about 10 ounces to this plane by adding the covering and the paint and things like that with the glue and all. And if I'd have flown it as just a foam, it would have been completely fine. But I did paint it just to give it some looks. And control rods, you can see right there, I come out and got the control rods bent up. I'll try to get the first flight on. I'm probably going out tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, and try to get you some flight video of it.